Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the energies for this week in today's Monday's Musings with very frizzy, uncontrollable, static hair, which for me is always a sign that there's a storm coming. I can really sense that collectively. I can really sense that there's a need to clear the air. I'm very aware that we're going into a new moon in Gemini, and what I hear is pause, stop, take one day at a time. But we are going into a new moon in Gemini by the end of the week. And there is a lot of information out there, a lot of dualistic natured guidance out there, because we have the twins, we have that reflection of the light and the dark. We also have the solstice just around the corner, and I really feel a higher heart release there in my higher heart and in my throat as well, an opportunity to really speak of what it is we are yearning for on a soul level here. And it's changing. The communication is changing, and I can feel that. I can really feel that under my rib cage and my solar plexus, some excitement there, but also some trepidation of trying to do things the old way, finding safety in routines that aren't perhaps as nurturing, fulfilling, or stabilizing as they once were. Now, I've really seen that, and I'm kind of wishing I'd written down these bullet points now, but it is about trusting that what comes to you, what you remember, what you recall is what you need to take forward, and anything that does not is no longer meant to be. The last few days I've been very aware of some real synchronicities in regards to old patterns, old songs, quite literally, duplicate record that I bought, old things playing themselves out, not only with myself but with those around me externally, but also a wonderful opportunity to see just how much growth is being reflected, and that brings up quite a temperature for me. I can feel that burning through a transformative fire within us all this week. And I see peaks and troughs of energy, peaks and troughs of emotions, okay, where we try and control things and we try and figure out our connection and we try and make sense of what we're feeling. And it's that that's going to bring forth almost a Kundalini type fire within us. I'm not saying don't control your feelings, but just recognize in doing so, that is going to bring about the change. So that when we do get caught up in that, almost I feel like being weighed down, need to ground the insights that are coming through and what it is we're feeling. When we feel caught up in that, just know that it is all part of a huge transformative change that is occurring. Now, the cards to the side of me, I want to just draw your attention to the two that are at the top. We'll go into these later, but we have the star and we have the moon, and there is a real difference this week, recognizing what it is we are aiming for. Are we aiming for our truest soul potential, or are we aiming for our own illusion, our own beliefs of what that entails and what that involves? And the key is to really feel into our emotions, because we may get things come to light where we are deflated, where things may not have been what we want them to be, and we can feel almost tricked this week because we have that dualistic nature of Gemini. We do have that trickery energy. But remember, anything that initiates the emotions within us allows us to figure out where we are, how well we are looking after our own needs, and the impact that that has on the very things that we are creating. So really using anything that comes this week, this video included, as a chance to say, how does that make me feel? There's no right or wrong here, guys, but how does that make me feel, so that we can bring the responsibility back to ourselves? Because ultimately the storm brewing is the need to clear our own communication with our own body. Let's get back to the hair. Let's get back to the hair and now. So yes, my hair is very frizzy, and that always happens before a storm, and I was really tempted to tie it into plaits or put half up, half down, or just try and control this. Now, for me personally, that doesn't work. For me personally, I find I get greater results if I go with the flow. That may not be the same for you. And this week, it isn't about doing things that are right for everybody else. It is about doing what is right for you. We have, as we enter into this week, I'm not sure the day, I think it's a day before the new moon. Yes, it's a day before the new moon. So around about the 17th, we have Saturn going backwards, or retrograde, if you will. Let's really concentrate on the fact that going retrograde does not mean to go backwards. It just means to slow down. However, this week, we are going to be given opportunities to go backwards and to really reflect on what was us in order to decide what we are taking through with the solstice energy, because many times we talk about portals being gateways, but obviously the equinox is an opportunity for a doorway into a newer, more balanced energy, and really, really important to bring forth any ceremony, rituals, or anything that's going to help harmonize that balance this week. So for me, it is allowing things to flow. As you can see, I never know what's going to be said. But if I can not get out of the way, that feels like key. It's not about getting out of the way this week, but opening up. If I can open up my own potential, what comes through needs to come through. And this week, there is a real difference between witnessing and decompartmentalizing things, separating ourselves from what is occurring from a trauma response. There's a real difference in being the observer and either acting or not acting as a result here. And again, there's no judgment. It's about what works with you, what works with you, what works for you, works with you as well. I'm really recognizing that and honing in on that. So for me, being open works with me, works for me. You know, when I really expand and have no expectations, that might not be the case for you. And this week we are really being, thank you, yes, with the Saturn going retrograde, showing the impact of boundaries, necessary boundaries, not externally. I cannot emphasize this enough. Of course we will be triggered, of course we will see reflections of external boundaries, but it is about the internal boundaries here, because Saturn is going retrograde into Pisces. I know nothing about astrology and I can feel this. We must be able to feel this on the collective by now, that it is about taking responsibility for our own limitations, our own expectations, our own path, the narrative that we continue to create, rather than pinpointing and almost blaming the external. This week that's really going to come to light, because Saturn is going retrograde into Pisces. So it's about really reflecting on our own inner boundaries in regards to our spirituality, our trust, our faith, our belief in ourself as part of the greater vision here. Okay, so there will be things that come to light that we wish we had done, and there will be questions as to why have we not. And you know, again, it's about taking that mental energy of Gemini, that reflection, and really letting it stir us up, really feeling into how much do we want these things that we're trying to create, and how willing are we to go after them and to take responsibility for them this week. There was something else about Saturn in retrograde. I know that it hasn't been for 30 years, so really looking back, perhaps for those of us that it's relevant, where we were 30 years ago, but also actually for those that may not be 30 years old, looking at what was going on in the ancestral situation and the collective as well. Because, okay, something may not be relevant to you, obviously, physically, but energetically, everything that's going on in the world is relevant to us all. Okay, so there's a real duality of energy here to see ourselves individually and collectively this week, to take responsibility for our part, recognizing the ripple that has in the collective, but also being aware of what we feel externally and the impact that has on us individually as well. Almost like an infinite loop. That's what I see. So is there anything else this week? Okay, so there is quite a bit coming through. And it is going to be what you want to share and what you don't want to share this week, and how relevant you feel it may be, and pausing and taking time to note that. Is it relevant to the conversation at hand? So last night I had many dreams that I was flying. I had, and I was seeing through the eyes of an owl, which was just incredible. And I was helping other people do that. It might have been an eagle actually, the higher vision there. But I also had dreams that I was back in midwifery looking after a certain person in particular, who had deliberately made themselves sick so that I would stay and look after them and help them deliver. Now I can really take that on board as a mirror of my own situation at times, you know, where my own illness, perceived dis-ease has held me back from what it is I'm trying to achieve. And how much I'm really pushing through that this week, delivering an alternative. So really looking at where any imbalances in your own subconscious and your own psyche may be affecting what it is you're trying to achieve. So secondary gains here are going to be key. You may be wanting to try and you may be wanting something in particular, but actually find yourself up against the odds. And one of the themes this week is damned if you do, damned if you don't. And there's a real, yes, thank you, a real opportunity to look at where we are actually people pleasing, what it is we actually want, and how different they may be, and starting to really find a middle ground there. Because the other thing I'm going to share is my cat is completely and utterly deaf, and for the last goodness knows how long, she has been calling at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. No matter how positive you be, it can be, constantly being woken up. It can be quite exhausting. And I share this because collectively, when we discover more things about ourselves and the world we live in, it can be really tiring. And that's that up-down energy this week. So what I would really suggest is taking time to nurture yourself and prepare your environment for what it is you actually need. But also my cat, because she is deaf, wakes everybody else up but cannot hear herself. And yes, I can take that on board myself. Yes, I can relate to that, and I'm sharing that because perhaps you can as well. Perhaps what you are sharing actually needs to be heard by yourself. Taking time this week to really listen to what is going on. I've signed up with an incredible program by Jamie Cato called Bring It, and it's a teacher facilitator training course, and it starts in July. And I've just shared a video, an introduction as guided, about what we're frightened about and what excites us. And for me, they're one and the same. They're the same biochemical reaction in our body, which is worth noting this week. But also what I shared at the end of the video was that I was excited and petrified of receiving what I give others. Boom. If you're going to take anything from this video this week, how well do you receive what you give others? I am lacking. Gosh, I am lacking. And I can really, really open-heartedly admit that. And, it's quite exciting because actually it means there's so much more that I can receive from myself. There's so much more that I want to give myself, and that feels quite sacred. This week, really looking at whether it's on a work front, a relationship front, what do you offer people? Are you that empowering person stood in the corner? Are you that person that can make sense of business? Are you that person that can help people rise when they feel like they can't? Or that person that's a listening ear or accepting of others? Are you that person to yourself? Because this week, take a good look in the mirror. This week, be your own twin, your own soulmate, your own twin flame. Yes, that's going to come to light externally this week and in time for the solstice. Prepare yourself to be your companion, your be loved or beloved. Really looking at how well you are you for yourself. Do you show up? Okay, and from what angle, from what story, from what loyalty to what narrative? Really looking at that this week. Okay, yeah, I will share that. Today's daily guidance. Because when we look at that, more information comes through, right? Today's daily guidance was very much about how we are born from water and return to water. And what was meant by that was our emotions. So how does something feel? How do we create as a result of that? And how do we feel at the end of that is going to be key in order to really flow the emotions this week, the illusions that we may feel, the dissatisfaction, the frustration, the what is it when a storm brews? The pressure. The other thing that I noticed today when I was in the bathroom, actually, and I did see myself in the mirror, so again, there's that reflective energy there. I was thinking about, why would we go back to old patterns? Why, when we know that potentially they could hold us back, when we really know in our core that there's nothing there to gain anymore, there's nothing there to learn, when we've done the gratitude and we're so ready to move forward, why would we go back to old patterns? And I clearly received, I'm looking at a picture of a tree that I painted, and the ground underneath looks like waters have broken, and I clearly received, you get to that point where there is no going back, that transitionary phase. And our first reaction is, we wanted it, but do we want it? We wanted this child, but oh my God, we wanted this thing that we're creating. But it's natural to pull back. It's natural to think, am I ready? Take that opportunity to ask yourself, are you? What do you need to be ready this week? What support do you need? What environment do you need? What encouragement do you need? For some, it's going to be a rub on the metaphorical back or a mop of the brow. For others, it's going to be a stern, put your chin down and push. It's going to be different for you all. But what do you need to help you believe in yourself? And that's all it comes down to. I'm very aware of a fly in the room. But yes, being very aware of what it is you need in order to believe in yourself. The other thing I want to share is the cup that I was drinking out of. I got from Car Boot yesterday, and it's Isis on here, which is the feminine. And there's a lot coming forward in regards to the masculine this week because we have Father's Day, and a lot of the energies are more around our actions this week and really reflecting on that. But in order to do that, what do? We drink from the feminine cup. We drink from divinity. We nurture and reflect what has happened rather than berate, downgrade, despise, or separate ourselves from what is happening. We nurture what is actually occurring here. Because if we can get from a place of a healthy, open feminine, if we can get from a more expanded ability to receive, then the actions that are available become more readily available and more expansive. Okay, so really looking at ourselves as the foundation of what it is we're trying to achieve. Are we ready? Are we open to it being what it needs to be? I heard on the most incredible program yesterday, I heard a saying of, and I mean this in no religious context, but it sparked something within me. So this week, that's key. If something sparks something within you, recognizing that if you feel it in the higher heart, it's part of your truth. Doesn't mean it has to be other people's, but it's part of your truth, which is going to be really poignant this week. I heard a conversation of there are 3 answers to a prayer. One is yes, one is not right yet, not right now, and the other one is I have something better planned for you. And you know, if we ended up seeing life that way, if we ended up seeing that it isn't always a no, but a what if, this week it's going to really, really be key. Maybe there are other things that are planned for you. Maybe there aren't, but really, really looking at your own connection to your own belief there. Is it a no, or is it a you need to do X, Y, and Z this week? How ready you are, how prepared you are to be the guardian of the dream that you're trying to achieve here. How sacred you see yourself as the vessel from which the divine can drink and create with. So was there anything else with that? This is where I feel a need to pause, but not to seek out more information. It doesn't feel like it's important to seek out more information in the pauses, but to allow them to be pauses. To allow that change to shift purely from awareness. There are a lot of changes going on this week, and the new moon is actually linked to the Ten of Swords. So we're in the Tarot, so we're talking the end game of certain aspects. But less is more. When you're at the point of deliverance, when you're at the point of transition, less is more. And part of the natural reaction is to pull back from having to do too much. So in that pause, those opportunities of pause this week, not to seek out something else, but to allow the sacredness of balance and harmony to return before we bring in something new. Okay. And that really feels like that is all it's going to take, because from that perspective I really feel my crown chakra opening, my third eye opening, my vision almost becoming blurred and changing. And when that happens, I know that it's higher energy coming through, and I know I'm being asked to see things in a different perspective. So from that, I'm going to read into the energies this week with a new tarot deck. And this tarot deck are called the Druidcraft Tarot by Philip and Stephanie Cargom. And the reason I'm using these in particular, one, they're new, I really want to connect to the energy, but also they're masculine and feminine. They're a couple together that have created this, and it's really interesting to see what can actually happen when the masculine and the feminine unite to create something. Obviously I have beautiful links to Druidism and Wicca as well, and that more deep earthly based magic is going to be key as we, I want to say, transverse the equator, the equilibrium, the bridge that is available to us this week. Now it's a very big box. They're very big cards, which means I struggle a little bit to shuffle the energies up because they're big. They're bigger than me. They feel like they're bigger than me, and that can be quite difficult when I'm trying to mix things up. But there's a need for trust there, and also a stretching of my hands in order to give and receive more. A real stretching of the trust that I have. So make of that what you will this week. It feels very poignant on a collective level. Okay, what are we? Nearly 20 minutes in. And underneath it all, okay, so we've got the Empress. Underneath it all, we've got the Empress. But what I was going to say is underneath it all, underneath the ups, the downs, the intense mental energy, although it doesn't actually feel that intense mentally, it feels more intense emotionally, yes, because we are born from water and we go to water. Know that everything that we are doing this week and next week is to lead us into the solstice, it's to bring balance, but it's also about going into Cancerian season. Everything this week is about bringing up how well we mother ourselves, our own mother connection to the earth, to ourselves, to each other, how well we nurture what it is we are creating and ourselves as the very vessel of that. Okay, so everything we feel, everything we think about this week is really how nurturing am I being? How connected to the feminine? How grounded in the belly of Pachamama? How gently am I walking upon her? Yeah, really, really looking at that this week. How open is my heart to the communication that is longing to come through for so many of us? Okay, so what I was going to say, which seems totally irrelevant now, what I was going to say is underneath it all, what allowed that information to come through was the recognising how I felt. Underneath it all, yes, the energy may have the potential of being up and down. Emotions do. But underneath it, there's a real grounded... Some may see it's tiredness, some may feel drained or exhausted, but actually it's a contentment. It's a patience. There's a feeling of being held underneath it all for those that can just take a moment to tap into it. And from there, my third eye is really starting to spin. But nothing is needed. Just that peace, patience and contentment. Knowing that this is an ongoing flow. You're not going to figure it out in 1 week. You're not going to figure it out in one lifetime. You're not going to figure it out in one day or one relationship because you are so vast. What we're trying to figure out is ourselves and our place here, but you are so vast. Enjoy every moment one step at a time because it's an ongoing process. It's a little bit like creativity, okay? It's a little bit like breathing. It's a little bit like your blood going around your body. It's a continuous involuntary action. Okay, so really as the vessel, all we need to do is ensure we are from a very nurtured place, that we are allowing that to happen on the level that it needs to happen. Okay, with our own yearning and our own desires and our own permission. That's what I hear, our own permission to feel everything that we feel as part of the process. Okay, so some beautiful energies available, some really beautiful energies available. It does depend on which ones we decide to connect to. So, guidance for this week. And I'm going to make it, I was going to say going to make it short, but it's going to be whatever it's going to be. I'm not going to make it anything. Guidance this week. Okay. So we have the Six of Pentacles at the bottom of the pack. And what I'm being drawn to look at is the yellow flowers above me. Really from the soul center, really from the solar plexus, really from the place of joy. If you're going to give, do so from joy. If you're going to receive, do so from joy. I heard the most incredible quote today from Snoop Dogg. And he said something along the lines of a true king knows that it is in serving. I'll share it as a quote, but something about a true king knows that his place is in serving those that need him, or something like that. And really recognizing that, really recognizing the joy that we get from helping others, really returning back to that. And if that means we have to do it less until we get ourselves up together, or if that means we want to do it more because it gives us more joy, really finding your own balance, your own Aini this week is going to be key. Your own ability to be receptive to what is coming through. So I often hear from a lot of healers, I worked a lot this week and I did a lot of healing and I felt really drained as a result. And it is going back to basics, that if we're connected to a source beyond our own interpretation of something, if we're connected to the higher energies here, there's no reason why we would feel drained. It actually comes through us. We get to experience this. So everyone that asks for our help, actually, because of that, we're receiving this energy also. So it's that ongoing flow of abundance. If you're not feeling that, something is off kilter. There's no judgment there. There's no right or wrong. But look at what's off kilter. Could you take your energy higher? Do you need to rest? Are you eating well? Are you grounding? Are you out in nature? Are you taking care of yourself as the vessel of this receptivity? What do you need to receive in order to give from a place of joy? Okay, what joy do you need in order to mirror that? What love do you need in order to give love? Really, really looking at that this week, because if you're feeling drained, and I need to take this on board myself, not now, but by the end of the week, if you're feeling drained, what do you need? What do you need? Just keep it simple. What are your emotions actually telling you? As your guardians, as your nurturers, what are they actually telling you? Okay, we can say it's because the moon is here and the planets are doing this, and this asteroid is level with this, and it's a numerical day of such and such. And trust me, I do. This week's blog has got all of that in. But more importantly, what do you need? What is your body telling you? What are your circumstances telling you? Really fine tune it this week and be direct with yourself. Open your ears and listen to what is actually calling you out. Have the strength and courage to do that. When I think back to my cat, obviously the Leo, the strength card in the tarot, have the strength and courage to hear what is actually being calling you out. What is actually needing to be conversed. Okay, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 2 for Thursday. I need to move my cup to one side Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Oh, there could be a lot overall, and actually, okay, we will have them. There is a lot of energy overall. Remembering that it's always about what we give and what we receive this week. But there's a lot of energy overall, and it's all based around the Prince of Cups. Okay, so it is all based around the reflection there of our own movement, what we give as a result. You can see that new moon just in the background. I don't know if you can... The focus is going to take time. It's going to take time to focus on what it is our emotions need in order to be still. You can see here he's got no shoes. He's actually barefoot. So taking time to really ground this week, to really connect to the earth before we start to offer what is being asked of us. Because once we ground, once we connect to the belly of Pachamama, what is being asked of us to offer comes naturally, flows freely, and is received on that level also. So really recognizing by grounding, we are giving from a more embodied energy, but we are also releasing from that, really becoming that vessel. Okay, allowing our body to become that vessel, because the other energies that we do have are the Prince of Wands and the Ten of Pentacles. It's not about what we want. Now, oh my gosh, that's going to be a trigger. I can feel that myself. It's not all about what we want. We have the Ten of Pentacles here and that charging after it. This is what I want, my way or the highway. And there needs to be balance here, not to downplay what you want, but to truly figure it out. Okay, so you might want a relationship. What do you really want under that? Connection, love, somebody to share who you are with. Do you need a relationship with that, or should we just expand? Maybe it isn't about one soulmate relationship. Maybe it's about you sharing who you are. Okay, really, it's not this week. I'm not suggesting that you put your knees to one side, far from it. I'm suggesting or recommending that you go further into them. What is it you truly, truly, truly want? What is it you are really, really feeling under there? What is it you want to share? By focusing on that, you are maturing your intention. By focusing on that, you are gaining a deeper wisdom and a greater connection to what it is you actually need to bring in order to share that. So rather than an example, oh gosh, I would long for a field to offer retreats. That is what I want, and what I believe I need is the money to do that. What I actually want is to have a space where people feel they can be their self, because that's what I want. So what do I really need? Continue to open up and be who I am, trusting that that is coming, trusting that in that vibration, whether it's in my home, whether it's in my garden, whether it is in the big field, it is and always happening through everything that I do. This week, it's not about what you want, it's about what you want to share. Okay, and then if we realise that, not only do we recognise the world we're trying to create, but we also realise that by sharing, we are joyfully aligning with what it is we want. Why would we want to hold that back? I see a lot of people wanting to hold that back because their own needs aren't met, because they're not in a safe, healthy place in order to be that vessel. By feeling into what our vessel needs, what it wants to share, we automatically align with what it is we want. We are what we want. We are what we want. And that is going to be the pivotal changing point this week that is going to help us move forward. Because on the Monday we have the 5 of Cups. And I'm trying to see what's in the water here. I just feel really drawn to try and see what's in the water, what's in the emotions here. Okay, and it's fish. It's just fish jumping up and down. It's just fish. You know, there's plenty more fish in the sea. What's in the emotions here? Okay, and I really feel drawn to. It's almost like I'm stuck. Like I want to keep going into what is underneath it. What is underneath it? What is underneath it? And it's just fish. Okay, so Saturn is going to retrograde in Pisces, which is the sign of the fish. Okay, and it is that Christ consciousness. It is that, what do we want to say about the fish? All I feel underneath it all is a trying too hard, trying to figure things out, trying to see what's beneath the surface, trying to lure a fish in almost, trying to almost fish for information. And that's all I feel this week, when actually now recognizing what I feel, I'm just drawn to the 2 cups behind me. They feel really a lot more important to embody this week. Yeah, just to really truly walk away from trying to figure things out on an emotional level and just see what is left. What is now left standing as a result of everything that has happened on the Monday. Drinking from the divine cup. Must remember by Thursday to put that to one side. On Tuesday we have the 8 of Wands. So when we can stop trying to figure things out, stop trying to determine what we now need, stop trying to emotionally deep dive where it may not necessarily be needed. On the Tuesday we have the 8 of Wands. We can take actually what drives us. We can almost clear, and I feel like I'm trying to clear the air there, and the only way to clear the air is to actually decide what it is we want. Decide what it is we want based on how we feel. That is key on Tuesday. How do we feel? How do we want to feel? That is what we're aiming for. How do we want those around us to feel? What is it we are trying to create here? Take that and really go for it. Aim further than just ourselves. Really, really miles into the future for the generations to come. That's what I hear on the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, that does mean we have the 8 of Cups. That does mean we do need to walk away from that trying to figure things out emotionally. Even the insights that we may have received Monday and Tuesday, it feels like the whole week is a week of release. The whole week is a week of, oh, that makes sense. No, not anymore. Oh, that's what I want. No, not anymore. And just to keep taking those steps forward, because on the Wednesday, you know, that's, if we can keep going, we're heading towards that new moon. Okay, we want things to be new on the new moon. It is about really listening to what's coming up, really listening to the communication that is occurring emotionally and mentally, the impact that that has on what we're trying to create, and keep taking those steps forward. Okay, keep stacking that all up behind us, by all means, you know, putting it in order or getting our affairs in place or whatever, but keep moving forward. Always keep moving forward, because on the Thursday we move away from the cups. On the Thursday it becomes a little bit less emotional, which means from Monday until Thursday, use that opportunity. I really feel it in the chest. There's grief there to be had from the Monday. When we can acknowledge that, it clears. when we can acknowledge that the beginning part of the week is about grief and really use that grief to help us bring in what it is we're trying to achieve. You know, grief is love that hasn't been expressed. If we can really feel into that this week, whether it's a relationship that didn't last, a loved one that has passed, a job that we had to move forward from, what we're feeling is that love that we didn't get to express. Okay, so if we can take that and we can aim, this is what we want to do. We want to take that love forward. We want to, everything that was in that job that we no longer do, we want to take that forward. That stuff that, it's not about letting it go, moving on from it. It's about bringing it into our whole self and using that to move us forward. If we can recognize that this week, if we can really appreciate the sacredness of grief for what it is, not loss, but wholeness, actually, in the return to that state of being. If we can really appreciate that, by the Thursday, we have 2 cards and the emotions start to clear, because we have the Ace of Pentacles and the Ace of Swords. There's a real elemental balance seen in the sky. Now, I'm not talking the solstice, that's actually the week after, but come the Thursday, things are really starting to clear themselves out. The emotions are really starting to balance themselves out, and there's great potential for magic there on the Thursday. However, in the background down here, we have a bear. Okay, now that bear is starting to come out of its cave slowly but surely, but there's still caution there. So remembering on the Thursday, you know, it's still a beginning. So if we're going to go traipsing in and we haven't, and I hear, done the work, we haven't felt the emotions for the depth of which they're at, if we're going to go traipsing in on the Thursday, there's an opportunity to go back into our cave. And that feels quite nice to know. Then on the Thursday, if it becomes a bit too much, go back in. Go back in. Don't forget the nurturing that you've learned at the beginning of the week. Go back in. Don't forget the sacredness of knowing that for every new beginning, there's an ending. And to feel that. Because we also have the Ace of Swords here. So don't put your cup to one side. Really connect to your own connection. Remember it. Really connect to your own connection. That's a bit of a obvious statement, but it feels very obvious on the Thursday. The insights feel obvious, the answers feel obvious, and that can almost be quite confusing. But it's all about regrounding ourselves now and trusting the inevitable, trusting the facts, trusting that, you know, when something is said and you feel it in the higher heart, that yes, that's my truth. Trusting our truth is what's going to really bring us out of ourselves on the Thursday. And that becomes the cup that we end up drinking from. Okay, that becomes the higher energy that is now needed, so that these things do not drain us anymore. So that these old patterns of giving and receiving and irony and balance and masculine and feminine and duality can actually become one. It is about trusting our own selves this week and what is being reflected back. And the work that we've done, because on the Friday we do have the 8 of Pentacles. This is where we have that alignment above us becoming present in everything that we then create. So if we are coming at things from that higher level now, if we are recognizing that in every moment there is a beginning and an ending, in every moment we are growing, in every moment we are learning, in every moment we are working out who we are, then the physical response from that becomes a mastery. The physical response from that becomes, you know, alchemy. What I'm saying is lead into gold. Okay, we take those lower energies and we don't change them, we don't fix them, we don't ignore them, we transmute them into something tangible and beautiful. There's a reason our poets and our storytellers and our bards, you know, there's a reason they have the journey that they have. They turn their experiences into something that can be shared, something that is tangible, something that can help others, and in doing so they know that it helps them. Okay, so this is that bigger vision this week. It's not about what you want. That's the initial spark. Okay, it's not that that's not true. That will really call to your heart and it will help to spur you on. It's not all about that. It's about the steps that you're willing to put in place to achieve it. It's about the sharing you're willing to give as a result. It's about the growth individually and collectively that now needs to be mastered. On the Saturday, of course, we have the King of Pentacles as a result, and that's where I come back to Snoop's comment. So, being grounded in who we are, but also being grounded in what we share and what we have to offer on the Saturday is going to be key here. What else do I see? I see a robin in the corner, and I see a boar in the background, almost being ready to be feasted on in the fire. And it can be really, really boring. This repetition of things. This some of it is necessary. Well, who am I to say what's necessary and what isn't necessary? That's an individual component for yourself. But it can feel mundane and it can feel boring, and that's where it's really, really important to recognise the benefits of ceremony, to recognise that everything you do is ceremony, to recognise that everything you share, everything you create, whether it's a meal, whether it's in the arms of your loved ones, whether it's dispatcho, which is a sacred prayer bundle, whether it's going to Stonehenge or Avebury or other sacred sites on the solstice, whether it's waking up in the morning and saying hello to the sun, like the day keepers and earth keepers of old would have done. It's all ceremony. It's all a sign of divine intervention, inspiration, presence. I'm drawn to the robin in the background, and a lot of people will say that that's a sign that a loved one is near. Okay, so they're all signs that we're on the right track. It's down to us to really embody them and to see them for what they are, including the mundane, because it's that gives us deep grounding here. And it's that I feel is like, so normally from my own interpretation, a nice, deep, grounded, nurturing energy would be feminine. Stereotypically, that's what it would be. And we did pull out the Empress at the big Empress. There's like a mixture of the Empress, the Emperor, and Temperance. Empress. This week be Empress. But we did pull out the Empress at the beginning of this week. But by the end of the week, we are moving into Father's Day. And there's really a need to look at just how nurturing, I don't even want to say the sacred masculine, just how nurturing the masculine is. Because at every stage of every development, the masculine is sacred. And that's a real bugbear of mine, or bugbore of mine. I see everywhere so many indications of what the divine feminine is, and they're all incredible. She's this, she's that, da-da-da. But actually the sacred masculine seems to have this list of hoops that it needs to jump through in order to be considered sacred. Everything is sacred. All life is sacred. All stages of life are sacred. That's like saying to somebody at 2 centimetres that they're not in labour is totally insignificant and nothing's going to happen. And I see that happening, and it's so demoralising. So really this week, looking at all of our actions, everything that has led us to where we are, everything that will take us forward, but also the men in our life, the external influences that are causing emotions within us, remembering emotions are our own, but allowing us to experience our own story in a different way, triggering us, whatever you want to call it. Really looking at them for the sacredness that they bring, for the grounding that they initiate with who we are. Okay, so if we didn't have these actions, if we didn't have these things, we wouldn't have another opportunity to figure out who we are and become very embodied in that. Now, this is my perspective, doesn't have to be yours. And it is really recognizing what perspectives ground you, what actions ground you this week, so that you can see yourself as sacred. If you cannot see the sacred masculine in yourself, how will you see it in anybody else? If you are constantly berating what has happened, what you have done or haven't done this week, how are you going to see anything for sacred? How are you going to allow grief of what was be the very gift of what can now be? On the Sunday, Father's Day, that's where we're going to get called out. Where are we mentally trapping ourselves? The new moon. How are we going to free ourselves? What is it we need to open ourselves up to in order to do so here? Okay, really seeing our own potential, not compartmentalizing ourselves off from it, but seeing our own potential. Okay, when we end up shutting off from things, whether it's a trauma response, whether it's a pattern, whether it's needed, and sometimes there are, it can be absolutely needed boundaries. When we end up initiating boundaries for whatever reason, it's vital to look at what are we cutting ourselves off from within. Because shadows, light, triggers, all of it, you know, if we are cutting ourselves off from a particular energy, I'm not saying do, I'm not saying don't, this is your life, do what you need to do to live it to the best of your joy and potential and fullness, but also acknowledge, what are you cutting yourself off from inside? Because one way or another, it doesn't matter if it's a relationship, a teacher, someone in the shop that you go to regularly, someone that you may pass on a dog walk, or something you may see on social media. You can't escape what needs to be seen this week. And that really, really is going to be key, because it's a reflection of what's happening within you. Okay, so open your eyes to who you are, warts and all, so that you can truly see the magnificence of who you are. So from that perspective, 45 minutes, let's have a little look. Major arcanas, I don't think we have any. We have no major arcanas this week at all. It's down to us, guys, absolutely down to us this week. Obviously the energies are always there in the background, and you know, by stepping back, sometimes when we talk about the dark night of the soul, it can really feel as if we are on our own. And this week it can feel like that, especially with the new moon in Gemini depicting the Ten of Swords. It really can feel as if we've been left abandoned, that we're on our own, that the answers we need aren't coming, they're not forthright. Real dark night of the soul type energy. It's like a parent that steps back and watches their child learn to walk. It's observation, it's temperance, it's witnessing, it's empowering. Okay, you are not on your own. None of us are. We need to just reach out to those that can actually help us this week. And to do that, it is about stepping back for a moment, going within. What are we actually feeling? Once we know what we're feeling, we know what we need. The energies are there, they are supportive, but it is about going into the stillness and the silence in order to find them this week. On the dark night of the soul, we can often feel left, abandoned, but what actually happens is we connect to ourselves on a much, much deeper level, because we recognise this is our life to create, and only we can actually do that. Okay, so from that point of view, we have one, let's move them. I just want to say the Ten of Pentacles. We have the Ten of Pentacles. That's all we have underneath it all. And that does feel quite important. It is this week a coming to a close of what we once shared. Okay, the stories that we shared and who we actually were. It's changing. We are changing. And, you know, endings are great when we want them to be over, when we want something to end. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we have really got into a pattern of who we are, and we really actually like where we're at, and we may want something different, but that means letting go of some of that. You know, like we may love our independence but want a relationship. You know, there needs to be balance there. We can still have our independence, we can still be in a relationship, but what does that actually look like for us? Okay, I would love the field and run retreats, but my goodness, there's only so much I can actually do, so there needs to be a balance there. What do I need? Others to help. So, you know, really, really looking at that this week, which isn't something I would have thought of or even thought I wanted, but it's the bigger picture that's actually occurring there. So we have one. I'm trying to make sense of all the elements here. Okay, wands, cups. The cups and the wands are going to be a bit mixed up this week. Our drive and our emotions are going to be a bit mixed up this week because they're a little bit ungrounded, and they are actually the first two I'm going to look at. I was going to say the lower amount of them, but they're not. It feels this week as if our drive and our emotions are not behind us, but actually they are, and they need to be looked at. They're the first things that we actually need to look at this week. So what is it we are aiming for? What drive is behind it? How far are we willing to actually go? How far are we willing to actually go? How prepared are we to do that? Okay, how far and how prepared are we this week? Because that's really going to affect our emotions. If we're not at a place where we want to go full hog, you know, if we're not at a place where we want to have if we can't hold space for that lengthy conversation that needs to be had, our emotions, our drive aren't going to be in alignment. So really, how far are we able to go in that moment, and what do we need in order to do so? We need to look at our emotions. We need to look at what it is we are offering, and from where. Are we offering from a grief place here, or are we offering from a place that is ready to move forward? And there's no judgment there. There's no actual opinion there. It's just more awareness. Nothing is actually needed to change or be with that, but just to feel. Do I feel as if I'm in a place where I can share right now? Or do I feel as if I'm in a place where I need to be with myself? Really, really as simple as that. Am I sharing from a place that is hurt? Am I sharing from a place that has moved on or that is ready to move on? Really, really as simple as that. And then that way, every relationship that we start, every job that we start, every new beginning that we try and bring in, manifesting wise with the new moon this weekend, everything from that perspective is actually new. We're not having a relationship based on the others before it. We're not starting a new job based on the everything that happened before that. Or we are, but the beneficial side of it. Okay, so we then move on into a more grounded area where we have the Pentacles, and there's 4, and there's a lot of actual physical stability there, but it does really need to be about what we share. We have the 10 of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles, and there's a new beginning coming here in regards to physically what we are capable of actually sharing, and being aware of that, being aware of the work that has been put in place, but also the work that needs to be done, and really acknowledging and owning up, taking responsibility for the things that we haven't I keep saying I'm going to go to bed early, and then I would get up early and I would have a better routine, and I didn't last night again. So of course my cat calling was very frustrating and very tiring, and what I now need to share feels, I've connected to a higher energy, which is helping me do so. But yes, I feel after this, I need to take time out because of that. So really acknowledging that this week, really acknowledging what you're sharing, where you're sharing from, the work that needs to be done, has been done, hasn't been done, and why. The real mundane stuff needs to come to the forefront this week in order to not get lost in the mental potential there, because it's like a backwards forwards. It's almost like a, you did this, they did this, they did that. Someone somewhere needs to come along and go, what are you going to do about it? And that someone has to be you with yourself. Okay, so this is where you are, this is where you want to be. What are you going to do about that? What does that look like? What do you need? Because only you know what you need. And that can be boring, and that can be frustrating. But it's the most empowering work you'll ever do. And it's the new beginning that will now come from everything you have gained and everything you're able to share from that place. Okay, so we then have the 2 sword cards. We then almost have the twins of the Gemini season and the Gemini new moon. The Ace of Swords and the 8 of Swords. How do you want to see your own frustrations? How do you want to see your own mental imbalances, your own torture, your own... I'm reading a book called Existential Kink, and I totally recommend it. It's really looking at the shadow, but also looking at where we may be getting off on the shadow, where we may be bringing in particular patterns because they've been our narrative. Where, Father's Day, for example, I didn't have a father figure in my life. My mother was my father figure also, and she was incredibly strong, and I learned so much independence from her. But I also initiate certain narratives so that I can keep proving that independence to myself. And those narratives can be quite harsh. They can be very aggressive, very old school in regards to the masculine this week. So really, really, really looking at a new perspective of your own restrictions. What have you gained from them? What are you gaining from them? I'm not saying release them unless you want to, but open up to the awareness of them. See them in a lighter energy. There are still things I will always do because it's who I am, but I can see that I'm doing them, and I can see that actually in a strange way I am enjoying them, and I can allow myself to enjoy them. And when I do that, they just free me up to what's underneath, which 9 times out of 10 is a desire for nurture. 9 times out of 10 I can say so-and-so didn't do such and such, I did it all myself. What I'm actually saying is I just need some time out to nurture. So really seeing your own restrictions this week, your own mental health this week for the beautiful gift that it is, the underlying messages beneath it, and what it is you actually need in order to share, in order to be that vessel, that magic, that connection, in order to be who you are. Because underneath, yes, we do have death and the hanged man. And the star. Okay, so I'm going and the moon, but I'm going to stop there. We do have some major arcanas. Actually, we have the hanged man, death, the star, and the moon. So it is about seeing yourself in a different light, about really seeing your Christ consciousness, not from just the good and not from just the bad, but from both together, in order to let go of what no longer serves you now, so that you can see the higher vision that's being asked of you. The moon card remains in the pack, but it's still there. Just like the new moon at the end of this week, it may not be visible, but it's still there, and it's a wonderful opportunity to really reflect with our shadows, to really feel into the emotions that won't go away until we face them, to really recognize what is now trying to be communicated with us in the background. And there was something else there, but I'm just remembering the advice at the beginning. What's relevant will come forward. When there's a chance to pause, and just be this week when you can. In those moments of silence, less is more. Just allowing that new to come in. Take care. Have the most incredible week.